Good morning, and welcome to the 11th year of the Martin Luther King Garden. This is our harvest, our first big harvest of our bumper crop. And this is where we grow the produce that gets donated to the Hands of Hope Food Bank, which is run by Mrs. Jackie Godeski. I am Louise Lippy, retired teacher of MLK. And as you can see, I'm still not fully retired, but still doing. If you look at this project from my point of view, you'd see 2,700 square feet of perfect earth in which plants and seeds grow vegetables, and we donate it all to the people who need it the most. Growing this garden has taught many of my students what it means to give back to those not as fortunate as themselves, to share the earth's bounty and be our brother and sister's keeper for the betterment of the community. Here, taste this. It's crunchy. Did they give you one?
Yeah.
Is it delicious?
Mm-hmm.
Shazia, you want one? What do you think?
Good.
That's better than lettuce. There have been thousands of pounds of vegetables produced over the past 11 years, along with thousands of backbreaking hours of work to make it a success. We're proud of this garden and what it has given. All right, I'll tell you what, we'll start out here so I can get to the root of this.
You want me to cut?
I'll get started so you can walk in here. Okay, who's up first? Of course, I'm not the only one that gets thanked. There is a strong support from the Board of Education members who have voted to pay for the water and maintenance of the sprinkler system. Thanks goes to our principal, Diane Wilton, and the PTA, who generously donated money from the pretzel sales that paid the bill to Territorial Seed Company and bags of fertilizer. Mrs. Lori Lim, a parent, donated a huge gift certificate from Barton's Garden Center. I must also thank the grounds crew who rototill the garden twice a year. Without them, I mean, it's really impossible to dig all this earth up and turn it over. And last, I must thank our beloved custodians who mow, weed, whack the exterior of the garden to make everything look nice and neat. They pound in the tomato stakes, and they let me drive them crazy with requests anytime, day or night, to turn off or turn on the sprinkler system to keep the garden watered just right. And they always comply. No problem, Louise. That's a really nice comfort. You know what's really amazing? This whole thing grows from this. You would think to grow a big vegetable, you would need a big root system, but you don't. Crunch. That's a good sound. Next, I want to thank the Home Depot, who religiously, year after year, have donated $100 towards plants each spring as part of their Give Back program to the community. And last, I wish to thank Patel Brothers Cash and Carry for the 2 large, huge boxes of assorted potatoes. Last year was the first time they gave it, which gave about 55 pounds of potatoes. Not bad. This year they donated 2, so now I have 2 big, huge potato patches, and I'm anxious to see what they donate. What the ground produces. I was talking to my girlfriend, who's Italian, and there used to be an Italian lady right over from Italy. But she used to go nuts when she saw these flowers. So she came to me one afternoon after school because she worked for Latchkey. And she said, Mrs. Lippy, could I have some flowers? I said, what? You're going to take the flowers? How are the bees and the bugs going to pollinate the plants? She says, no, I'm only going to take the ones that don't need to be pollinated. So I let her take a few. Okay, fine. I said, what do you do with them? She says, we eat them. Okay, that's another mystery. How do you eat a flower? Anyway, back to the original story here. I asked my girlfriend, Esther, last night, I said, what do you do with these flowers? She says, they are a delicacy. You can get 6 of them as an appetizer for $17. I said, what do you do with them? She said, you take them, you wash them very carefully, you place them on paper so they dry. Then you beat up your egg like, French toast or anything. Put whatever spices you want in it. Dip the flour, put them in a meal, and then quickly fry them, like a minute on one side, a minute on the other, and that's it. She said, that is a delicacy. Well, look, now I can go make a fortune on flowers. Did you ever think you could sell flowers and eat them? You know the story that it takes a village to raise a child? Well, here you see the results of a community to raise a garden also. Since I am a teacher without a class, the children you see here today are students of my past, along with some of their friends and siblings, to aid in this harvest. Now, because it is so hot in July, a lot of my students have left the country to go visit their relatives. So we're a little diminished as far as help. But we do it anyway because we're committed to this cause. A phone call from some is usually all it takes, and we definitely are setting the right example of being a community that helps itself. I guess you can gather this is the theme of this letter. A big thanks goes to the Bonnie Plant Farm, who down in Georgia each year send up hundreds and hundreds of cabbages to be donated to the Edison Township school system. This winter was really harsh, and though cabbages can take a colder soil than most plants, there was a big problem with its early delivery in March. Why? Because the garden hadn't been rototilled for spring because the ground was still frozen. So therefore, these babies were all housed in my home. Eventually, I wasn't too happy about that, but I wasn't killing the little plants either. So eventually, by mid-April, the ground had warmed up a bit, the ground could be rototilled, and my house returned to its normal state of floor. Last year's success of potatoes under the ground and plants on top of the ground gave way to this year's planting of other vegetables on top, such as beets, radishes, and pak choi. Since planting tomato plants in between cabbage plants worked last year, I did it again this year, but more. Doing this enabled me to use more land effectively, especially when the cabbages are harvested, and then there isn't much time left for planting anything else. A discovery I made was planting cabbages along the fencing in the big garden, which I will shortly show you. There, the soil had only been used to grow beans. It became obvious that beans do not take so much nourishment out of the soil as other vegetables do. These cabbages grew to almost twice the size as the cabbages here in the cabbage patch, which is growing out of soil that is 11 years old. This year I grew Super Snaps peas, Super Sugar Snap peas. They are absolutely outstanding. They stand tall like soldiers, they send out runners to grab onto the fence, and really produce in abundance. They're delicious, sweet, and they give a hearty snap, and you can eat both the peas and the pod. No waste of food. We have the usual bell peppers, banana peppers, cubanole peppers, and all kinds of squash like zucchini, summer, crookneck, butternut, acorn, Hubbard, easy pick gold, and green squash. The tomatoes include heirloom. Now that's a funny kind of tomato. First of all, when you get it and starts to grow, it's a big husky stem. You don't know what you're growing here. You think you're going to be growing mountains. You are. It's a very prolific tomato plant. Then there are the herbs such as sweet basil, the parsley, curly and flat, oregano, and dill. I also tried leeks. However, when you buy the pot of leeks, there's 1,000 of them. Well, I didn't have 1,000 feet of room here for it, so now I'm waiting for the cabbages to go out. Then I'm going to take the leeks apart and then give them whatever they can grow for the rest of the summer and, fill out in their body. A gardening tip, fellows and ladies, if you want to cut down on your weeds, get some newspaper and lay it over the soil, and then get some freshly cut grass, preferably weed-free, and then put the grass about 2-3 inches, even 4 inches, on top of the newspaper. Make the newspaper about 3 or 4 sheets thick. The Star Ledger is good, the Post is good, and the Courier News is good. The small ones, do not use shiny paper. That's not good because it doesn't let the water soak through. So you put this newspaper down, then you put the grass 3-4 inches. You can put 6 inches. The object is that you're going to suffocate with darkness the weeds, and then you have no weed problem. Make sure there's about a 6-inch collar around the base of the plant so that they can get the water and the nutrients. Hopefully the garden's production will last until the end of October, giving the Hands of Hope bountiful harvests to help those in need. My students and I thank you for joining us once again and letting us show you the productivity of our school garden. I wish you a healthy and happy summer, and if you're gardening, have a happy gardening. Thank you.